19th century African American cemeteries are cultural warehouses. They are packed with authentic African practices and artifacts, or Africanisms, and they are depositories filled with African American traditions. The Colored Union Benevolent Association Burial Ground in Washington, D.C. is a prime example. The Free Young Men's Benevolent Association, which was the precursor to the Colored Union Benevolent Association, was founded in 1838 in the District of Columbia. It was a mutual aid society that provided financial assistance for its members, care for the sick, and a burial ground for the deceased. In 1865, after emancipation, the Free Young Men's Burial Association was granted a charter by an act of Congress. The name was changed to the Colored Union Benevolent Association, which is currently referred to by its acronym C.U.B.A. According to C.U.B.A's charter, the organization's mission was to provide a burial ground for its members and the family members of its 16 incorporators. As a result, in 1870, C.U.B.A purchased 6 3/4 acres of land in the northwest section of Washington, D.C., at the intersection of what is currently Adams Mill Road and Calvert Streets. By 1890, the health department prohibited any more burials and the C.U.B.A burial ground was closed. However, in the brief 20-year period of activity, over 8,000 burials took place at the C.U.B.A cemetery. Africanisms are abundantly present at the C.U.B.A cemetery. For example, a ceramic bird was found among the material culture. In the cultural systems of the Mande of West Africa, birds are sacred. They portray intelligence and artistic mastery. But most importantly, birds represent the human spirit flying to heaven and the transition from the earthly plane to the spiritual realm. A metal king-like sculpture is another artifact that was found at the C.U.B.A burial ground. It depicts the African custom of placing blacksmith-generated items at grave sites. The upward slant of the chin and the angle of the forehead in relation to the chin highlights the continuance of Mande stylistic sculpture in the Americas. Additionally, pieces of earthenware decorated with spiral designs were found at the C.U.B.A burial ground. Spirals and circles represent the continuity of life and of the universe in Mande philosophy. They denote unending cycles of nature and the eternal progression of the cosmos. The C.U.B.A burial ground doesn't only contain Africanisms. Material culture indicative of the transition from Africanisms into African American customs are also present. For example, pottery was found at the site. In the Mandara highlands in Nigeria and Cameroon, pottery pots are placed on the graves of adults. They provide a vessel for the soul to return to earth as an ancestor. However, the pottery found at African American burial grounds was virtually always broken. It was assumed that time and erosion broke the pottery. However, the items were deliberately broken before they were placed in the burial grounds. In contrast to the practices of the peoples from the Mandara highlands, who sought to provide a vehicle for the deceased to return to earth, African Americans believed that breaking the items would sever the bonds between the deceased and the living, and would discourage a return to the earthly plane. African Americans also have rituals with regard to burial direction. In Africa, the burial direction is based on 7 criteria: the circumstances of death, age at death, gender, status in society, number of offspring, location in Africa, and the ethnic group. However, a large number of 19th century African American burials were all made on an east-west axis. I'm here at the sacred 19th century African American burial ground, the Colored Union Benevolent Association Burial Ground, or also known as C.U.B.A. And it is, in fact, a very sacred area. There is a slant. The landscaping is actually a hill. And that is a feature that will be found in many 19th century African American cemeteries. They would construct the cemeteries on a terraced landscaping. The coffins or the bodies would always be facing an east-west axis, and the significance is that when the spirit of the deceased person rose, it would be facing Africa. That is a characteristic that is very apparent in the C.U.B.A. burial site as well. 19th century African American cemeteries are historical and cultural warehouses. African American funerary traditions facilitate an understanding of cultural tenets that emerged in this country, and they provide a lens through which Africanisms can be explored. The Colored Union Benevolent Association Burial Ground in Washington, D.C. is a fitting example of both Africanisms and African American traditions.